Okay, so I do want to get your take on this one. This will be our segue back. Um, you don't have a problem with the National Guard. I can kind of rationalize that. That's kind of what they're for, is to, now granted it's supposed to be at the governor's, wishes, but what do you think about the Marines being deployed? Now granted it's only 700 of them, but Hegseth has deployed Marines to help quell and, obtain law and order.
I'm all for it. I think, for deterrence, also, there's a part of me
You're
that,
all for it.
oh
Jesus.
yeah, I'd just like to see it, if they, roughed up a particularly nasty protester, someone who really had it coming, uh, you know, and that deserved it, then yeah, I think I'd probably get all giddy seeing that on the TL. So
What?
yeah.
Jesus, what am I hearing right now?
Well, okay, if there was some, punk like looting a Best Buy and he was stealing a TV and then some like Chad Marine like came in, took the TV out of his hands and like threw him to the ground and arrested him, like, well, wouldn't that be kind of cool? Wouldn't that just like it would be cathartic. It would be cathartic.
I don't doubt that people would cheer for it. If that's your question, I don't doubt that people would see that and be like, "Yes,
Oh yeah,
this
and
is
I'm
what."
I'm that type of person. I would totally cheer for that. I love
Jesus.
Law and Order. Law and Order.
Yeah.
When
Oh,
it
yeah. That's
when
why
it's
you love
against
it.
my
Oh, yeah.
enemies.
Oh, yeah. That's why you love it. Yeah. That's how humble of you. That's why you love it. You're just trying to uphold law and order.
Exactly, exactly. As long as it's against the right people.
I think that's strangely enough, I do think that this is more people think like that than you do, than you would think. And on more issues, so for you, immigration seems to be like just your little pet issue where you're just super okay with doing pretty much anything. I listen, if this National Guard like stint turned lethal, would you be in okay with that? Like if they just started unload, like at Kent State, you know what happened at Kent State, right? Where they deployed the National Guard there. They
Yes.
shot
Yeah,
they shot
they shot
protests. They
quite a few
killed,
people.
yeah. Yeah, they shot and killed a bunch of protesters. If it turned into a Kent State scenario, you would oppose that, right? Or would you be like, kind of had to come on citizens, not on migrants, on citizens?
I mean, there would be if okay, like say if there was like I don't know, a National Guardsman uh that it was just him and one other guy and they were in a car as we've seen a million times before and they get swarmed and surrounded by protesters and the protesters are breaking the windows and screaming and jumping on the car. I think honestly to me that does seem like it warrants lethal force. In Oklahoma it's actually legal if somebody is if protesters are obstructing traffic, you can run them over. It's totally fine, and I agree with that law. So, in certain instances, I think yeah, I think lethal force is totally justified. It just depends on the context.
Yeah, I guess. And listen, I don't entirely disagree, but like I would oppose the National Guard being there with lethal force really at all. So that's kind of my thing. If you bring the National Guard with lethal force, then you have lethal intent as the being the one who sent them. So, the buck would really stop with whoever sent them, in my opinion. So that would, whether it's Trump or a governor who's trying to help, quell some sort of migrant protest or whatever. Um,
You are
it's
playing with fire. I mean,
it's
I,
political
I
suicide, though. You would you like if you're just looking at this from like a political analysis point, if they had a Kent State situation in Los Angeles right now, Gavin Newsom would already be the president in 2028, I feel like.
Yeah, it would be really bad, but here's the thing, because getting into the mind of people who think like me, or just normal people, for that matter, that are pro law and order, and whether it's right or on the right or the left, uh, I think if they saw like a Marine, you know, kill like, a justified kill against like a protester that legitimately seek to do that Marine harm, I think it would actually play well among the general public. I think the public would eat it up. I think they'd
No,
love that.
no, no. This is another. You're so wrong on this one. You're so absolutely wrong on this. I mean, you got to think just about Floyd, right? And I know your feelings on Floyd. Um, you know, a lot of people feel like it was a justified thing that happened, right? But the fact is that the normies, right, average everyday people, on the left, they saw that and they were utterly disgusted for all the reasons you could possibly fucking imagine, right? And then on the right, it was pretty split on whether or not, well, should he really, 9 minutes is a long time. Like there was this second guessing thing going on, right? And so I would agree with you. There's going to be if this does happen, right? There's going to be no shortage of people who will openly defend it, right? That segment exists. You apparently are part of it, you sick bastard. But half of your coalition is going to be split on, was it justified? Why were they even there? This was an instigatory thing. Versus the other side is going to have all their ducks in a row, right? So you understand, like, their coalition is completely, like, united, and then your coalition is fractured, right? So in terms of, like, garnering your electorate, right, it's going to be totally politically beneficial to, in this case, the Democrats, right?
Okay, well, you make a good point, but I would say your logic is outdated now because the vibe shift is real. And I think the difference between 2020 America and 2025 America is enough to where I think I don't know if the left would be split like the right may have been during the Floyd debacle, but I do think that the right would be at least pretty much 100% on side. So basically, the left wingers would probably take the protesters' side no matter what. And this time, though, I think the right wingers are going to take the I mean, the Marines' side, no matter what. In this scenario. So, I think the calculus has certainly changed.
No, dude, you're thinking way too. Yeah, again, it depends on the extent of the attack. Like this is pure speculation too, on our part. But depending on the severity of the attack, if 10 fucking United States citizens die because United States Marines opened fire on a protest, there will be political consequences for that. I I can't possibly imagine that you're being serious right now when you tell me that no, actually the vibes have shifted so far in the right's favor that they're actually going to see that and they're going to be like that's based actually and it's going to further strengthen our coalition. There's no way you think that that's true.
Well, again, it's all context based. Like it has to be relatively clear cut. Like if it's the scenario like I posited earlier, where the left wingers are swarming a car, and then the Marines, get overwhelmed and decide to, start firing. I think people will on the right will generally be okay with that, if not support it. But on the other hand, if it's a scenario like similar to what we saw today, I believe our mutual friend, I won't name him just in case he doesn't want his name on here, but our mutual friend sent us a video of a cop just shooting a reporter with a non-lethal round in the leg for basically no reason. If it's something like that where it's just not justifiable at all, then of course it'll play terribly for Trump. But my assumption is that that is not going to happen.
I don't know why the hell you would assume that. That's wild. But I do also, unless you feel like you need to flesh this out more, I do want to get your take since you mentioned it. Um, Trump and Newsom are kind of having a standoff right now, right? Um, it's pretty cool, you know. Did you see Gavin Newsom and Tom Homan got into it? Did you see any of this? Have you seen? Are you aware?
I have not seen Gavin Newsom and Tom Homan go at it. However,
Not directly to each other.
oh, not dir- okay. Yeah, I mean, I've seen Gavin kind of going off on the timeline, like, and then there was some comment I believe Trump made about arresting him, and so
Yeah.
I've seen some stuff about that. But is there like a particular instance? Uh,
Yeah, so the order of events is this.
The fear, the horror. The hell is this guy? Come after me, arrest me. Let's just get it over with. Tough guy. You know, I don't give a damn. But I care about my community. I care about this community. The hell are they doing? These guys need to grow up. They need to stop. And we need to push back. And I'm sorry to be so clear, but that kind of bloviating is exhausting. So, Tom, arrest me. Let's go.
A few moments later.
Tom Homan to come and arrest him. Should he do it? I would do it if I was Tom. I think it's great. Gavin likes the publicity, but I think it would be great.
So basically, you've got, Tom Homan says, like, yeah, if Newsom, if he breaks the law, then we're going to hold him accountable, right? Nobody's above the law, right? And then, Trump calls the National Guard, they deploy Marines, yada, 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 chaos, right? And then Governor Newsom's like, all right, listen, dude, let's just get it over with. Arrest me. Like, quit playing games. He's talking smack to Tom Homan. And then they asked Trump, they were like, hey, by the way, would you support Tom Homan arresting the governor of California? And literally, Trump says, as you all heard in the clip, he literally says, like, yeah, he should do it. I'd do it if I were him. That's that's unbelievable, Like that's unbelievable. And I think that you're not you, but like I think the Trump administration is like lighting their own powder keg. Like they are lighting off dynamite in their own political capital to where they can't like this is not going to age well for them. Even though this is his top issue, I think this is the dumbest way you could have done this if you're trying to yeah, I don't see the American people approving of this.
yeah, I think if he actually did arrest Gavin Newsom, yeah, my fear is that it would not be good optics.
Good optics? What is it with you and these optics? God dang it. It's not just bad optics, it's bad policy, it's bad behavior. Jesus.
Well,
It has nothing
I don't really like Gavin though.
that doesn't
So,
mean just because you don't like somebody doesn't mean you can arrest them, right?
yeah, well, I mean, the Democrats tried to throw Trump in jail. Why? I mean, I'm okay if he wants to
He was
throw.
committing actual crimes. What has Gavin Newsom done?
I mean, again, it's one of those things. It's like Trump's petty crimes didn't really affect me.
But
I
they're
mean,
way worse than the no crimes that Gavin Newsom has committed, right?
I mean, they might as well have
They're-
been. They might as well have been no crimes. I mean, they were crimes basically constructed out of thin air.
yeah,
So
I mean, yeah, they're white collar crimes. I don't deny that. Yeah.
So I mean, if they want to make up some crap on Gavin to, I don't think they should do it because I think it might swing the pendulum back. But
When you
you know,
make some crap up, do you mean like literally out of thin air, like just falsify like charges, or do you mean like find anything that can even like have a
I mean, just
thread of?
like finding some little thing and then blowing it out of proportion, like the Stormy Daniels thing. I mean, that was so unserious. And, he got 34 felonies for it, and they tried to, they're tried to throw him in jail over other things. So I think, if they want to do that with Gavin, I mean, I don't think it would play well. I think it would ultimately be a poor tactical decision. But if they could get away with it and succeed, then I'm okay with it. You at some point you gotta fight fire with fire.
It's crazy. This whole time I saw your analysis on the Trump administration, and it's like you were wanting to see more stuff like this. You know, like you were wanting them to go down this road. You were like, oh, God, if they're going to be incompetent, they may as well do it in the most batshit crazy way where they at least end up arresting or detaining like people who are also my political enemies. Like that seems to be your analysis here, and that's just lunacy.
Well,
I don't even know how to respond to it. Like that's how crazy what you're saying is, and there's it's just nuts.
uh, I mean, it's certainly not a common belief. I think, but honestly, though, I take that back. I think it is a common belief. I just think most people don't have the stones to say it. But I'm someone who's just willing to.
Oh, how brave of you. Yeah, pat yourself on the back, you freaking what the heck?
Yeah.
Jesus. Okay, well then let me ask you this. And do you have like much more to say, or are you were you like wrapping up final thoughts ish type stuff?
Um, I think that's basically all I wanted to say on the topics. But it, if uh if there's another question you
Yeah.
have, or
Yeah. So I just am curious in terms. So would you say immigration is like a top three, five issue for you?
it's certainly top five. Yeah.
Okay, so I am just curious, do you think that these actions and like the actions we're likely to see from like LA to the deportations that strategy that they have right now, do you think that that is more likely to like decrease public support and potentially like at the midterms undermine one of your top positions? Or do you see this as like neutral or even like a strength to your position?
I think it's basically a strength. I've seen polls that the majority of Americans, I believe, are actually in favor of action of mass deportation. So, maybe that number would change if you asked them a specific question like, should a pregnant lady be deported,
Well,
that,
and
that happens to be illegal. I can see sentiment changing, but if Trump can really get a handle on the narrative, if he can.
that's the key. And I'll tell you why that's the key. So there's a lot of polling on this because everyone has seen what's been happening with, Mahmoud Khalil, Abrigo Garcia, all of these people, right, have been in the news. It's his immigration's been in the news. It's not like, it's just people aren't paying attention because if you ask people, like, and just straight question, are you satisfied with Trump's like current immigration enforcement policy? Like you said, majority of Americans say yes, this is good. This is what I wanted. But then whenever you ask them the question, do you think that non-criminals should be deported? It's something like 65, 70% say no, of course not. Of course they shouldn't be. So what we're seeing, right, is a like what they think is happening versus like the reality is what's happening. So it's not like they're deporting mostly criminals, right? I mean, everyone would concede that, I feel like, if they were pressed.
Oh yeah.
Um so it's really just like you said, is can he control the narrative and paint these immigrants as monsters and criminals and Satan himself, you know? And then the Democrats, if they can get their messaging right, then they're going to tell stories about the 2-year-old American citizen that was deported that had cancer. But unfortunately, people don't even hear about that story because they can't message for shit. So,
Yeah, I will say messaging is not a Democratic strong suit. So, in that respect, I do feel like Trump has the upper hand. I mean,
oh yeah,
and it's often said about left people of the left wing persuasion. They pick the worst martyrs ever. I mean, George Floyd is a prime example of a scumbag that was lionized. I that's kind of a different issue. But even like this Abrego Garcia guy, you know, you know, I don't think he was like some, hardened thug, criminal gangster or anything. But there was enough there to play around with by the Trump administration to basically make the guy look like a bad enough person that, they were able to beat back a lot of the bad press in the media. So even when they make missteps, they're able to recover from it fairly well. There was enough there. But yeah, I think they definitely need to stop doing these. Just they need to stop making mistakes, especially with like the Palestinian protesters. I mean, yeah, in terms of like Mahmoud Khalil, that was just totally unoptical, immoral, wrong, pretty much in every sense. So he should stay away from doing things like that.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'll agree with you about, Kilmar, Abrego, Garcia, right? Obviously, they do not pick the best champions, but you got to keep in mind though, it sounds a little corny, but their heart's in the right place. They're not arguing that that dude has to stay in the country. At least the competent ones are not. There are some far leftists that are like, nope, open borders don't even exist. It's social, whatever. Um, Most of the people they just want to see Kilmore have his rights, his due process. So like I don't know if you saw, they're literally bringing him back just to go through the deportation due process, which is going to be, because he's guilty, right? He's definitely guilty, right? So it's
Yeah.
going to be a kind of a waste of time and taxpayer, but that's kind of the point of the entire legal system. And I know that undermines one of your top three issues. I mean, you know as well as I do that like the part of what lowers that amount of deportations is once they're already here, you have to give them a trial. You know what I mean? Like if you meet them at the border, you can just turn them away, basically.
Oh
But
yeah.
which is why Obama and Biden's numbers are I'm gonna say inflated, but that's really not because it's still a deportation, right? They saw a dude entering the country and they kicked his ass out.
Oh yeah. Oh
But
yeah.
it's not like they're deporting people like Trump is. Trump's deportations are in house, and
Hmm.
that just requires more due process. And that's all we want. It's just a and listen, I'm not even the most you know me, I'm not the most pro immigration guy there is. You know what I mean? Like I'm just asking for the bare fucking minimum here. Like
Yeah. I
and
mean,
Congress will give you the judges. Like they're not even like judges like the third they're not third branch government, they're executive branch judges, like go nuts. you know
yeah. I mean, like if like this big beautiful bill comes out, or well, if it gets funding for all these judges and everything about the whole immigration, if it gets a lot of funding for the whole immigration enforcement process, then maybe I'd be more willing to countenance the whole, you know, the process. But to me, I mean, the process. To me, it's more of an annoying obstacle. There's just so much to be done. I'd really hate to be bogged down with with the court system. So.